Hey guys, welcome to Friday's edition of Executive Espresso. We're here every Friday talking with founders, innovators, and business leaders at the intersection of psychology, mindset, and all those three things that we just mentioned. Love to have you guys on today. If you have a question during today's chat, drop it in the live chat. I'll bring it on screen. And I know our wonderful guest, Andy, a dear friend of mine, who calls himself a reluctant founder, would be glad to answer those. Andy is behind some billion-dollar ventures that he's going to tell you guys about with a combined following of all those platforms of over 300 million users. He's a speaker, a teacher, he's a mentor, a father, and he is host of the CEO of Your Life. What a cool title. Imagine being CEO of your life. Today we're going to talk to Andy about why would he call himself a reluctant founder. I think a lot of you guys out there are going to get so much value out of this because of how reluctant we are to embrace our own success and how this has led to great success in his own life. You'll learn the single most important leadership trait that Andy teaches his consulting clients, how he built a massive scale user platform, several of them, and how you can too. And so without further ado, Andy, hey man, I'm so glad to have you on today. I
Hey,
appreciate
Dr.
you
Heath.
taking time out from your busy day, but kind of give us the backdrop of what you've done in life up to this point.
Well, my crazy life kind of reads like a storybook or one of those adventure novels. I've worked in all kinds of projects. I've lived all over the world. I've done crazy things. I've been in executive boardrooms with vice presidents and with the presidents of companies and talk with them on a regular basis. And it just, it's very strange, but it's really kind of the most fascinating part of my life has been that you're in a room with a handful of people making a decision that impacts 30, 40 million users. And it's just, it's wild when you think about it that way. And I've been privileged enough to do all that. And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate that. So you want to know about reluctant, right? Reluctant. Why do I call myself a reluctant founder? Uh, I'm a founder because I've had my own company for a long time, but that idea came from Alex Damsker, and she was the one that said, "Hey, there are some founders that are reluctant. It's a matter of how you build things." I just started creating a company because I wanted to get a full-time job and nobody would hire me as a full-time job, but they would keep hiring me as a consultant. They like, oh, come do this project, or hey, I go over here, or we got this other problem, or people would call me and say, hey, what's going on? Can you fix this or can you come help us? And I just said yes. And so the reluctant part is just the structure of how you build a company. If you're a real founder, you build a company where you get investors, you get money, and you put together a team and do things. I was just reluctantly turned into a businessman because I didn't have any other choice. I just had to figure out how to survive and take care of my family.
You know, I would guess that a lot of other business people, founders, innovators, leaders suffer from the same thing, that reluctance. And so, what were some of the thought processes driving your reluctance? Do you think? What thoughts? You know, in my field, I call them sabotaging thoughts or stuck points. What kind of thoughts are keeping you stuck, keeping you reluctant? Do you think?
Well, I think if you go through, so I believe the education system is designed to build blue collar workers when you get out of high school. That's a blue collar training program. And then when you get out of college, it's a white collar training program. And but the problem is we don't have factories. And so we have this system that produces lots of employee kind of mindset and employee thinking. And the world is just kind of different today. And so having to pivot away from I want a job, I want benefits, I want all this stuff so that I can have some security and take care of my family. And yet that never showed up. The only thing that showed up was, yeah, come work on this thing for 2 years, or work on this thing for 3 months, or work on this thing for 6 months, or work on this thing for a year and a half. Oh, and by the way, it's in Egypt. Oh, it's in Turkey. Oh, it's in, you know, Romania. Oh, it's somewhere else. Oh, you have a team and they're in Saudi Arabia, or they're a team and there's, yeah, like I said, I've had just crazy projects.
That's awesome. Tell us, I wanted to dig into that. Tell us some, if you can, not to break confidentiality or whatever, some war stories that this reluctant mindset, you had to overcome that reluctant mindset to be effective and successful in the war room of corporate America, so to speak.
Well, I typically do projects. So a project is we're changing something. You're changing software, you're adding something new, you're putting in a new building, you're whatever, right? Building a new operations center. And then you have to have people who, because you need your normal work to keep going, but then you need another team of people to come in and build stuff, right? So if you do an addition on your house, you're going to hire a crew of guys that show up and knock down the walls and put the stuff in and build the whole thing and decorate it out, and then they go away. Well, I just have operated in that kind of space in the technology and organizational structure of business for all these years, and uh, it it's just the most fascinating part was the pivot came one day when I said, maybe they're never going to hire me. I mean, I don't have advanced degrees. I'm not like cool like you and have like a big giant list of credentials. But that's on this side, the credentials, went to this school and graduated with this and have this degree and this credential. No, no, no. On this side is the resume. Well, my credential list is kind of small, but my resume is like this.
Wow. That's
So that's
amazing.
what
I love
happened.
that. And those credentials, by the way, folks, those don't always help. Credentials are really no different than tools in a toolbox. If you go off to university, if you go off to grad school, and you get this big toolbox, full of credentials, and you never use them, or you use them and you use them and you use them, but then like my dad's chainsaw. I grew up watching my dad sharpen his chainsaw. I
Oh
remember
yeah.
hearing Stephen Covey talking about walking through the woods and running into a man in the morning. He probably made it up as an example, but it was a great story. Walking through the woods in the morning and saw the man cutting a tree. He came back later in the day to find him still sawing on the same tree. The question he had for him is, why not take time to stop and sharpen your saw? So it doesn't matter the credentials, it matters how you use them, whether you're using them appropriately, and whether you keep on honing those tools. A term that I was familiarized with, acquainted with early on in my career, it was really undergraduate school because we had to come up with a plan called a lifelong learning plan. So I find that some of the most effective leaders are leaders that do not think they know everything. They're willing to keep accumulating new tools. They're willing to get rid of an old tool that may have worked in the day but no longer works. And I want to ask Andy about that. Do you run into businesses that it worked for a great great grandpappy, it should work for us. And then finally, that they are willing to keep sharpening those tools. It may not be a bad tool, but it may need to be sharpened or repurposed. But what are some of the things that you find that, tools, whether it's a thought process, a policy that business leaders hang on to, even though the usefulness of it is past, or they need to sharpen it?
Great questions. Okay, so first of all, right back here is the list of books that I've gone through. So the ones there are the ones standing upright are the ones that I've done this year, and the ones that are flat are the ones that I recommend. So anytime I need to recommend a book, I go, hey, look, so right there, those are the books. When I say here's a book to recommend that you read, those are the books, and I only recommend the ones that I've actually read. So I think, first of all, you have to read, because how could you possibly imagine you know everything? I know the older I get, the less I've realized I know. I'm like, well, okay, I thought I knew that, but it wasn't quite great. I'll give you a great example. I actually built a digital course to help people get technology jobs. And I put together the whole plan, and I called people and I set up a webinar, and people came and they bought it. And I realized that at that moment, I realized I had it wrong. in my mind. The technique works, right? And you can go to my website, 40by50.com, and you can go click that. It's free. And I just decided that everybody needs that. You can go get it for free. That's not the point. The point was that I realized I failed. And what I failed to do was I believed the kind of the dream that if you build it, they will come. If you build something good that fixes your problem, that other people have the same problem and they'll come do. That's not true. I have different problems than Dr. Heath does. He has different problems than I do. And just because I solve my problems one way doesn't mean it's going to help him. And so what I really need to do is pivot everything. And this is kind of one of the things I wanted to talk about. And that is find out what they want, right? You asked for what are going to, later on, you're going to ask me, here's my notes, right? What are the 3 most important leadership tools? Here's the first one. It's always about them. It's not about me, right? I have my own problems, but I don't serve me. I serve other people. And running all these projects, you got to remember, I only have one tool at in my golf bag. There's only one club that I get to use, and it's called influence. There is no authority. There is no power. There is no retribution. There is no threatening. There is none of that. And I've tried all of it. I have literally been hired where the phone call came and it said, "Hey, Andy, listen, we need to shake things up. Can you come in here and just
clean house,
swing the big axe and make," and I'm like, "Yeah, I can do that." And it works. But here's the problem. It works as long as I'm there doing this. But as soon as I walk away, they go back to where they were doing. And that's not effective leadership. Effective leadership is by influence, saying, you can be better. You know when you look in the mirror that you haven't done everything you're supposed to do. And you know when you look in the mirror that there's stuff that you could do that you're fully capable of doing, but you're afraid of doing. And so that's when I came up.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Andy.
Well, that's when I came up with this idea of being the CEO of your life. I join spaces all the time. I talk to people and try to help them get jobs. And the bottom line is this: if you think that you're going to go get a job that's going to solve all your problems, you're wrong. It's just going to amplify whatever problems you have. You're still going to have your problems. And so I came up with this idea that you should, and it was an offhand comment. I just was like, yeah, why are you trying to do all these problems? You should just, think like you're the CEO of your life and just take control. Imagine that your skill set is a company and you are marketing that company to somebody else. And that company is going to go do work for them and make money. And then when you get the money back, what are you going to do with it for your life? Think of it like you're the CEO of your life. So that's where that beautiful. All came from.
I love things like that because they're so empowering. If you don't give your coworkers, your associates, your employees, if they don't have a reason to do a thing other than they're going to get in trouble if they don't do it, they're going to be fired or demoted or frowned upon if they don't do it, then they're not going to reliably do it. Because as the old saying goes, when the cat's away, the mice will play. But if you do what Andy's talking about and empower them, work with them to discover a reason, a big enough why to do a thing, where they take ownership of doing the thing and they become the CEO of that project, they become a CEO of that goal, then they will more reliably do it. There's a really famous research project that resulted in a phenomenon called the Hawthorne effect. A company wanted to study, a bunch of researchers wanted to study what was it that led to increases in productivity. And so they observed workers. And they noticed if this factor was in place, productivity went up. They thought, well, we'll change that. We'll change these factors. We'll change the variables. To cut to the end, they found out that no matter what variable they changed, productivity increased. Well, then the variable that we think is the variable can't be the variable. Here's the Hawthorne effect. People change their behavior when they know they're being watched. But you can't always watch your employees. You can't always watch your associates. Even if they're on cameras, what are you going to do? Hire people to watch the cameras? Some companies do. But if you work with them to help establish a why, This is why this project is so important. Here's how you're contributing. And I love one of the hiring pitches that is attributed to Steve Jobs. He asked, and some, many of you know this, he asked, I think it was a Coca-Cola executive. He said, do you want to spend your life making colored water or changing the world? You want to spend your life making colored water or changing the world? And this executive quit Coca-Cola, I think it was, and went to work for Apple. And the rest is history. It follows up with another famous quote from Steve Jobs is, we don't hire smart people to tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. If you're having to tell after, some orientation phase, really smart people what to do, then either they're not as smart as what you thought they were, or you're not as smart as you thought you were. Andy, what do you think about that? And we're going to go on to tip number 2 for unbreakable rules for leadership.
Well, first of all, you're exactly right. There are so many things I want to say, but let me just put it this way: if you only have one tool, if you only have one tool and it's a hammer, everything's a nail, and so all you're going to do is smash stuff. And the way that okay, so when I run a project and I want people to understand that they are the ones taking control of their part of it, it sounds like, here's what it used to sound like. Okay, look, this is due on Tuesday. Are you going to make it? Is this what, can you blah, 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 make sure that you get this done by Tuesday. That's what it used to sound like. You know what it sounds like now? Here's what it sounds like. Hey, I know this part of it is assigned to you. Do you have all the right tools? Do you have all the information you need? Do you have everything you need to get this done? Okay, cool. Is there anything else that's in the way? Can I move anything else out of the way for you? Or are you good? Do you got this? Okay, when do you think it's going to get done? I don't care what day you tell me. You tell me when you can get it done. So each one of those things is, do you have tools? Do you have time? Do you have blockers? Do you have things in the way? Do you have any other activity? Okay, now that I've asked if you've got all the right materials to start with, when can you actually do the work? And as soon as they tell me, I just go, look, I'm going to write it down. And by the way, that follows up with this. Hey, if something gets in the way, there's a production issue, there's somebody says something, things happen. Don't worry about it. Just let me know, right? I've already built into the schedule some time to adjust for anything that happens. Okay. If it gets too crazy, I'll let you know. But otherwise, listen, if you can't make it by Tuesday, just let me know. As soon as that last part, like 90% of my projects now come in on time. And my effort is that kind of talk at the beginning and then just watching. And I don't follow up with people. I don't track them. I'm more of a shepherd kind of leader than a herder, right? I don't sit on a horse with a bunch of dogs and snap. I used to do that. Oh God,
Snap
I was
the
the
whip.
worst, right? Oh my God, I was the worst guy at that. And now I'm more like, hey, everybody, let's, can we meet once a week? Let's tell me what's going on. Is there any problems? Otherwise, you got this. If there's an issue, just ping me. I'm available. I'm here to help you.
Yeah, I
So
found that in my work, and I get a lot of referrals from companies when there's employee dissension, when there is conflict between employees and management, and that's kind of a new thing. I started doing that probably 20 years ago, but it's still a relative new thing. When an employer sees an employee not doing well, instead of writing them up or giving them the boot, to say, what might be going on here. So what I found is it's often not an employee problem, but a systems or an
yeah.
interface problem.
Mhm.
Now,
Agreed.
I hope some of you out there are thinking of applying this to your relationships, because I'm talking about, instead of being a people critic, you're a systems analyst. And if you're in a relationship, say Andy and I are in a partnership, it may not be his fault or my fault. It doesn't always have to be somebody's fault. It may be a systems issue. So why would you take a think that there's a finger pointing solution for a systems issue? Focus your fingers on the system. And I love what Andy had to say there, and I think it's a very new way of managing people, and that is to ask them, let's put our heads together. What might be going on here that is keeping this project from being a success? What hurdles or potholes are in the way that are keeping you or your team or the company from moving forward? And instead of, there's always got to be somebody to blame. But Andy, what other thoughts? And then we'll go on to the next tip on unbreakable rules for leadership.
Well, when if you do some studying on what is the primary job of the CEO, right? What is their responsibility, right? They have basically three responsibilities. The first one is never run out of money. So their job is to find enough money to grow, expand, to do whatever they need to do. And it's not just payroll, right? Payroll is not that's just one part. But the second rule, the second responsibility of a CEO is to establish the vision. Why are we here? What are we doing? And so if you can go back to yourself and say, okay, I really don't like this job, but I have to do it because I've taken care of my family. Cool. That's great. Everybody goes through that season. But if you can pivot your mind and say, yes, but in my life, to be in control or at least to have more, to move from I have no control or feeling like I have no control to maybe having a little more control. If you can do that, you can say, great, I'm going to do this job as best I can. I'm going to learn as much as I can. And I'm going to do this other thing. I'm going to learn. I'm going to read one of those books. I'm going to figure out something. I'm going to try this new thing. I'm going to take a class. I'm going to, sell cars on the weekends. I'm going to, start a lawn care, whatever. The point is, you've decided that isn't the answer, only the answer, nothing but the answer. It's just one part. And so, the CEO's job is never run out of money, create the vision. What's the vision for your life? What do you want to be known for? What are you? Who do you want to be? When Dr. Heath says, hey, here's Andy, what does Dr. Heath think? What is he going to say to his friends? What is he going to say? Hey, listen, Andy's coming on Friday. What did he tell his wife? I don't know, but I want to make sure that it's not I'm stuck in a box and I hate the box and I'm a grumpy, horrible person. I want it to be something else. And so you just choose, I want it to be, you don't have to know what it is. You just have to know that the CEO of your life means it's my fault. If I'm stuck there, it's my fault. If I do that and I go on X and I create a following, or I write a digital course, or I write a book, or I post something that people like, that's my fault too. If I create a better relationship with my wife, it's my fault.
And that brings up an important point that you can't hold people accountable if they don't have control, investment, or partnership in the project that they're doing. As my brother would say, if you're, he calls it bird dogging. If you're bird dogging people and you don't empower them to have investment, control, and a stake in the game, then accountability goes out the window. I was so impressed. Go ahead, Andy.
Then you're just watching them like a parent, right? You're just going, no, don't do that. No, don't run in the street. No, don't touch that. It's like, don't bird dog people. Give them the task. Okay, here's the pivot that happened with that. Give them the task, let them do it. If they don't do it, help them. If they can't do it after you help them, give somebody else to help them. If they can't do it the third time, move them to a different job and get somebody else to do that one.
I have a wonderful story about that. I put up on my community Facebook page. It is a Facebook page for the community in which I live. And I said, hey guys, if you have an industrious, hardworking young man who would like to come and work for a few hours doing some cleanup, I sure could use the help. And I got a text message saying the strangest thing. Would it be okay if we had an industrious young lady or two? Well, sure, absolutely. And these two young ladies show up that are probably 4 feet tall. And I said, my goodness, how old are you guys? One said I'm 11, the other said I'm 12. They told me what they needed, and they each grabbed a bucket and a rake and a little hand shovel, and they went to work. It required no supervision on my part other than saying, here's what I needed done. And they were invested in that because they had a big enough goal. If you don't
Hmm.
have a big enough goal, you're not going to have a deep enough investment. And so their goal is to go to the Vatican. And so they're going to raise enough money, cleaning up yards, picking up dog poop out of people's yards, selling chicken eggs and duck eggs, $5 for a dozen chicken eggs, $10 for a dozen duck eggs. I don't know why I didn't ask. I guess duck eggs are more valuable. But they're going to do this, and their investment is so deep, or their commitment is so deep, because they have a big enough why, you know. And so that's one of the things that I think that people should work with employees on is what's your why? Because if you don't have a big enough why, you're not going to have a deep enough investment. Well, guys, we're about to wrap it up. If you have any last minute questions for Andy, pop them up there. I would love to put them up there on the screen. Andy, go ahead.
There's one thing you mentioned I really want to point out, and that is when you said, here's no supervision on your part, but it also meant you just had expectations to get it different than it was, not the perfect expectation of how it's supposed to be perfectly at the end. And so it's like, hey, could you just go clean up this stuff, trim the edges and pick up the blah, blah, blahs, or do whatever. And whatever they did was good enough. Well, if you start changing your expectations, and this is another trap that we have around the world in every culture I've been in, we don't say the objective is a clean yard. We say the objective is a perfectly edged line, just exactly the way that I would do it. How about if I didn't do it and somebody else did, and the lawn was mowed and trimmed? Who cares if it's exactly like I would or not? And besides, maybe it's better. They could probably do it better than me. But if I, in my mind, right, it's all about the thinking. In my mind, if I set the expectation of it's going to, at the end, it's this or it's not good enough, you're going to have a hard time helping anybody without bird dogging them or oversight or telling them
Absolutely.
or instructing them the whole time. But if you just reduce your expectations that, hey, my yard's kind of a mess, I really want it mowed, I want it trimmed, and that's good enough, then good enough is going to give you a higher level of satisfaction at all times. And it's going to make the whole process smooth and easy.
And one of my motivators behind that, Andy, is I wanted an ongoing relationship with his family where if I needed more work done, they would be willing to come back, you know. So one of the biggest mistakes I see that business leaders make is they don't properly view the importance of the relationship with the
Oh,
team that they're working with. Well, Andy, how can folks get in touch with you? Where's most of your content?
most of my content is on X. If you go there, there are links to the newsletter. I started a new newsletter yesterday called Andy Unfiltered. So if you want the CEO of your life, you can go to my bio on X and you can click the link and sign up for my newsletter. I do have a CEO of your life boot camp where so there's free content, and then the boot camp will launch you through 6 steps of how to think and do things better in your life. And then at the end of it, if you want to join a community, you can do that. But if you need a job, you can go to my other blog, which is 40by50.com, and look at all the instructions I have there on things to help you get a job. Update your bio, do your resume. I've got templates and details and plans and how to do interviews and how to work with recruiters and how to deal with HR people. There's videos and there's all kinds of training and thousands of articles that I've written over the years to do that. So you can do that, and you can just reach out to me on X, and be happy to talk to you anytime.
Fantastic. What a wonderfully successful individual, guys. Andy does some spaces with me on X. We've been doing spaces on Saturdays about, we call it Charm School, about public speaking, getting out of your own way, presenting yourself in the best light. So we're going to do one on Saturday. I don't know if Andy can be there or not because he's been on duty the last few weeks. But we're going to be doing one on setting up a space on X. They're called Spaces. We're live streaming, I know, to YouTube, and folks may not be familiar with that. Also, LinkedIn and Facebook. But that'll be Saturday, and it's in my feed. You can see it pop up in my feed on X at therapy_bites. And I welcome you guys that are listening. Come over and join the Mindset Masterclass. It is school.com/mindset, SKOOL.com/mindset. Grab a free membership there. We talk about deeper mindset issues and the psychology of mindset every day over there. Andy, let's leave our audience with a affirmation to kind of get them pumped up for the weekend. What wise words would you share with them as we depart
Well,
today?
I loved the one that you put on when you sent me the note. One of the things that I'd written in the past was most people tiptoe through life just hoping to make it safely to death.
Mm.
Yeah, but don't. Be the CEO of your life instead. And by the way, when you asked about the 3 cool things, this is a poster that I actually have that's hanging over there, usually on the wall,
Oh,
but it says, if I put it in the camera, it says, never give in, never give up, and always do the right thing.
wonderful. I could not have chosen a better way to end it. And I want to thank my friend Sherry for being here. 2 Sherrys, actually. Sherry Slatoski and Sherry Wergedal. Thank both you, Sherrys. I don't know that I ever had both of you Sherrys on here before, but thanks for being here. My dear friend, Your Son Mindset, he says, 2 great minds. Thanks for the informative conversation. And thank you. Sherry says that she really likes that sign, and I do too. I got to get one of those for my kitchen. I love inspirational signs. Good to see Vikash here. Thank you for being here. And guys, we're going to be back in about 2.5 hours for Midday Mindset. That is also on X. It is will be live in my feed at 12 o'clock U.S. Central Standard Time, Memphis time. In the meantime, thank you guys for joining us. Andy, thank you for being here. Guys, we'll be back with another Executive Espresso next week. Check out the masterclass, guys, school.com/mindset. School is SKOOL, and it's /mindset. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye, everybody.